But here's the turning point. When you start to see that this fear isn't random, it begins to lose its power. Understanding why you feel this way, that it's tied to old traumas and the unconscious desire for safety, can bring a sense of relief. It's not about blaming your past, but about recognizing how it shaped you. Freud's insights remind us that by facing these hidden parts, we can break the cycle. You realize that your emotions are valid, that this tension is a message from a younger you asking to be acknowledged. This clarity doesn't erase the pain, but it gives you a path to heal, to stop repeating what hurts and start living more freely. Think of it as slowly unwrapping layers of protection you built long ago, not to destroy them, but to see what's underneath. Maybe it's a child who learned to be quiet to avoid conflict, or someone who buried their needs to please others. As you connect these dots, the weight lightens, and you find moments where you can breathe without that constant guard. It's a gradual process, filled with small realizations that add up to a deeper self-awareness, helping you move from reaction to choice in your daily life. Now, let's look at how this understanding plays out in real life. Imagine someone like Sarah, who always feels a knot in her stomach when things are going well. She might sabotage her own happiness, ending relationships or quitting jobs just as success seems near. This isn't irrational. It's her unconscious protecting her from a fear of loss that started in childhood. Perhaps she grew up with parents who were unpredictable, where love felt conditional, and she learned to expect disappointment. Freud would say this is the unconscious at work, repeating old patterns to master the pain, but instead, it keeps her stuck. You might see this in yourself, those moments when you pull back from joy because deep down, you're afraid it won't last. It's a silent battle between what you want and what you've been taught to expect, and it drains your energy, leaving you feeling empty and confused. This emotional toll is heavy as the mind fights to keep the pain buried, yet it surfaces in ways you can't ignore, like anxiety or a sense of never being good enough. But by seeing this, you start to untangle the threads, realizing that your reactions aren't flaws but echoes of past hurts. This awareness is the first step toward breaking free, allowing you to respond to life with more clarity and less fear. Think about how this shows up in small ways. Maybe you avoid taking risks because failure feels too familiar, or you over-apologize for things that aren't your fault, carrying guilt that isn't yours to bear. These behaviors aren't random. They're tied to early experiences where you had to adapt to survive, and now they shape your choices without you even noticing. As you reflect on this, you might notice patterns in your relationships, always attracting people who make you feel insecure, or pushing away those who offer genuine care because it feels too vulnerable. This isn't a sign of weakness, it's your mind's way of trying to resolve old wounds, but it often leads to more pain. Freud's ideas help us see that by acknowledging these unconscious drives, we can start to change them, not through force, but through gentle understanding. It's about giving yourself permission to feel what you've buried, to listen to that inner voice that's been silenced for so long. When you do, you might find that the fear loses its grip, and you can begin to make choices that align with who you truly are, not who you were forced to be. If this resonates with you, take a moment to reflect. Where in your life do you see these patterns repeating, and what might they be trying to tell you about the stories you carry? Remember, understanding yourself is a gentle process, and if this video spoke to you, consider liking and subscribing for more insights into the human heart. Now, let's explore the deeper roots of this emotional struggle. Often, the patterns we see in adulthood trace back to childhood experiences that shaped our unconscious mind. For instance, consider a boy like Ethan, who grew up in a home where expressing emotions was met with criticism or silence. He learned to hide his feelings, believing that vulnerability was a weakness. Over time, this became a part of him, leading to behaviors where he avoids intimacy or becomes overly self-critical as an adult. Freud emphasized that these early imprints are not forgotten. They live in the unconscious, influencing our desires and fears without our awareness. It's not just about big traumas. Sometimes it's the quiet moments of neglect or the constant pressure to be perfect that leave lasting marks. You might recognize this in your own life. Perhaps you feel an unexplained guilt when you succeed, or you find yourself drawn to situations that replay old dynamics of control or abandonment. This isn't coincidence. It's the unconscious trying to resolve unfinished business from the past. As these patterns repeat, they create a cycle where you feel stuck, unable to break free because the pain feels familiar, almost safe in its predictability. But understanding this connection can be liberating. When you see that your reactions are echoes of a younger self trying to cope, it softens the self-blame and opens the door to healing. Freud's wisdom reminds us that by bringing these hidden forces into the light, we can start to rewrite our stories, not by erasing the past, but by integrating it with compassion. Think about how this plays out in everyday moments. Maybe you overwork yourself to avoid feeling inadequate, a habit formed from childhood praise that only came with achievement. Or perhaps you struggle to set boundaries because saying no once led to conflict or rejection, teaching you that your needs don't matter. These aren't conscious choices, they're automatic responses wired into your psyche from years of adaptation. The unconscious holds on to these lessons, replaying them in relationships, work, and even in how you talk to yourself. For example, if you were often compared to others as a child, you might now constantly seek validation, fearing that you're not enough without external approval. This can lead to exhaustion as you chase after something that never truly fills the void, because the real need is for self-acceptance, not outside praise. Freud called this the repetition compulsion, a drive to revisit old hurts in hopes of mastering them, but it often deepens the wound instead. By recognizing these roots, you begin to see that your struggles aren't personal failures, but natural outcomes of your history. This insight allows you to pause, to question why you react the way you do, and to slowly introduce new ways of being that honor your true self. It's a process of gentle unraveling, where each realization brings you closer to freedom from the past's grip. If this makes you think about your own experiences, pause and ask yourself, what childhood memories might be influencing your current fears, and how can acknowledging them help you feel more whole? And if this video has given you insight, please like and subscribe for more honest conversations about the human psyche. As we move deeper into this exploration, it's time to confront the emotional collapse that arises when these unconscious patterns go unchecked. This isn't just about feeling sad or stressed. It's a profound weariness that seeps into every part of your life. Think of someone like William, who spends his days putting on a brave face, but inside he's crumbling under the weight of repressed emotions. He might appear successful and in control, yet he battles constant anxiety, insomnia, or even physical pains that doctors can't explain. Freud taught us that the mind has its limits. When we bury our true feelings, like anger from childhood injustices or grief over lost connections, they don't disappear. Instead, they fester in the unconscious, building pressure until they erupt in ways that feel chaotic and overwhelming. You might experience this as sudden outbursts of irritability over small things, or a deep sense of emptiness that no achievement can fill. It's the price of repression. Your psyche, in its attempt to protect you, ends up creating more suffering. This collapse often shows up in relationships where you might withdraw from loved ones, fearing they'll see the mess inside, or you might cling too tightly, desperate for reassurance that never feels enough. In work or daily tasks, it can manifest as procrastination or perfectionism, driven by a fear of failure that stems from early criticisms. The unconscious is clever. It disguises these struggles as rational concerns, but at its core, it's a cry for the pain to be heard. Over time, this emotional toll can lead to burnout, depression, or a feeling of being trapped in a life that isn't truly yours. But here's the crucial part. This collapse isn't a sign of weakness. It's a signal that something needs to change. Freud's ideas highlight that by acknowledging this breakdown, we can start to heal, not by fighting it, but by listening to what it's trying to tell us. Consider how this plays out in subtle, everyday ways. Maybe you find yourself constantly overcommitting to please others, only to feel resentful and drained later, a pattern rooted in childhood where love was tied to performance. Or perhaps you avoid conflicts at all costs, swallowing your opinions until you explode over something trivial, replaying scenes from a past where speaking up led to punishment or rejection. These aren't isolated incidents, they're symptoms of a deeper unrest where the unconscious is forcing old wounds to the surface. For instance, if you grew up in an environment where emotions were dismissed, you might now struggle to identify what you're feeling, leading to confusion and isolation in your adult life. This emotional numbness can make it hard to connect with others, leaving you feeling lonely even in a crowd. Freud described this as the return of the repressed, the way suppressed desires and pains inevitably resurface, often in distorted forms like addictions, chronic worry, or self-sabotaging behaviors. It's as if your mind is trying to balance itself, but without awareness, it only adds to the chaos. The physical symptoms are real too. Tension headaches, digestive issues, or fatigue that have no clear medical cause, all linked to the stress of holding back your true self. This isn't about blaming yourself, it's about recognizing that your body and mind are interconnected, and when one suffers, the other follows. By paying attention to these signs, you can start to trace them back to their origins, perhaps to a time when you learned that showing vulnerability was unsafe. This process of connecting the dots isn't about dwelling on the past, but about understanding how it shapes your present, so you can make conscious choices instead of reacting automatically. When you begin to see this collapse as a call for attention, not a failure, it becomes easier to approach yourself with kindness and curiosity. You might start by simply noticing when you feel that familiar tightness in your chest or the urge to escape, and gently ask what it's protecting you from. This small step can open the door to profound shifts, helping you release the grip of old fears and embrace a more authentic way of living. If you're feeling this weight, ask yourself, where in your life are you ignoring your true emotions? And what might happen if you allowed yourself to feel them, even for a moment? And if this reflection resonates, remember to like and subscribe for more guidance on navigating these inner landscapes. Now, we arrive at the heart of understanding, the moment when clarity begins to dissolve the fog of confusion. This isn't about finding quick fixes or magical solutions. It's about seeing your own story with new eyes, where every emotion starts to make sense. Freud often spoke of how the unconscious holds the keys to our behaviors, and when we bring those hidden parts into awareness, we can finally understand why we feel the way we do. For example, take someone like Karen, who spent years feeling unworthy of love, always seeking approval from others. She might have thought it was just low self-esteem, but through reflection, she realizes it traces back to childhood, when her parents were too busy to notice her needs, teaching her that she had to earn affection. This insight doesn't erase the pain, but it transforms it from a mysterious burden into something understandable, even manageable. You might find this in your own life. Perhaps you've always felt a deep-seated fear of abandonment, and now you see it's linked to early experiences of being left alone or ignored. Or maybe you struggle with anger that seems to come out of nowhere, and you connect it to times in the past when you weren't allowed to express frustration. This process of understanding is powerful because it shifts the narrative from "what's wrong with me" to "this is why I am this way," fostering self-compassion instead of self-criticism. Freud's teachings remind us that our minds are not random. They are shaped by our histories, and by uncovering those layers, we can start to heal. It's like finally hearing the story behind a long-held secret, the relief that comes from knowing you're not broken, just human, with a past that influences your present. This awareness allows you to pause before reacting, to choose differently, and to slowly build a life that feels more authentic. Consider how this understanding unfolds in daily moments. Maybe you notice that you always feel anxious in social situations, and you trace it back to a time in school when you were mocked for speaking up, leading you to believe that your voice isn't valuable. Or perhaps you find yourself constantly striving for perfection at work, and you realize it's because you internalized messages from a critical parent that you're only lovable if you achieve. These realizations aren't just intellectual, they're emotional breakthroughs that can bring tears or a sense of release, as if a weight has been lifted. Freud described this as making the unconscious conscious, a process where repressed memories and feelings come to light, allowing you to integrate them rather than be controlled by them. For instance, if you grew up in a household where emotions were suppressed, you might now understand why you feel numb or detached in intimate relationships, and that awareness can help you slowly open up to vulnerability. This isn't about blaming your parents or your past, it's about acknowledging the impact they had so you can take back control of your emotional life. As you connect these dots, you might start to see patterns in how you handle stress. Perhaps you turn to food, work, or other distractions to avoid feeling, and now you understand it's a coping mechanism from childhood when you had no other way to soothe yourself. This comprehension brings a gentle acceptance where you can say, "Of course I react this way, given what I've been through," and that very thought can be incredibly freeing. It allows you to approach your flaws and struggles with curiosity rather than judgment, and to make small, intentional changes that align with your true desires. Over time, this understanding deepens, helping you recognize triggers and respond with more wisdom rather than falling into old, automatic reactions. It's a gradual shift from feeling like a victim of your emotions to becoming an observer who can navigate them with care. If this resonates with you, take a moment to ask yourself, what part of your emotional world have you started to understand better, and how has that changed the way you see yourself? And if this video has helped you gain insight, please like and subscribe for more reflections on the human experience. As we come to the end of this exploration, let's bring it all together with a gentle reflection and a simple invitation. You've walked through the shadows of your unconscious, seen how old wounds shape your present, and felt the relief that comes with understanding. This isn't about fixing everything overnight. It's about embracing the process of becoming more aware, more human. Freud's wisdom teaches us that the most dangerous sign isn't the pain itself, but ignoring it, letting it fester in the dark. By now, you might feel a bit lighter, knowing that your emotions aren't enemies, but messengers from a past that's asking to be heard. Remember, this is just the beginning. Every small step you take to listen to yourself, to pause and reflect, builds a bridge to a more authentic life. It's okay to move slowly, to feel uncertain. That's part of being real. So, as we close, I want to leave you with this question. What one insight from today will you carry with you, and how might it change the way you meet your fears tomorrow? If this video has touched something in you, if it's made you think or feel a little less alone, please like and subscribe. Your support helps this channel grow, so we can keep having these honest conversations about the human heart. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for taking this time to understand yourself a little better. Think about how this journey has unfolded, from recognizing those subtle fears that hold you back, to uncovering their roots in childhood, and finally arriving at a place of compassionate insight. Perhaps you've started to see that your need for control isn't about power, but about a deep-seated fear of chaos from a time when you felt helpless. Or maybe you've realized that your tendency to people-please stems from a desire to avoid conflict, learned in a home where peace came at the cost of your own voice. These aren't just intellectual realizations, they're emotional shifts that can slowly transform how you interact with the world. For instance, when you catch yourself over-apologizing or avoiding risks, you might now pause and ask, "What is this protecting me from?" and gently remind yourself that it's okay to take up space, to have needs, to be imperfect. This isn't about erasing your history, but about integrating it so you can write new chapters without the old scripts dictating your choices. Freud's ideas remind us that healing isn't linear. It's a series of small awakenings where each moment of clarity adds up to a fuller, more connected life. As you move forward, carry this understanding with you, not as a burden, but as a tool for navigating the complexities of your inner world. You might find that over time, the grip of old patterns loosens, and you feel more free to express who you truly are without the weight of unconscious fears. This is the essence of Freud's psychology, that by facing our deepest selves, we can find a path to genuine freedom and peace. So, as you go about your days, remember that every emotion, every struggle is part of your story, and by honoring it, you honor yourself. If this video has sparked something in you, I encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments or revisit these ideas when you need a reminder. Your journey is unique, and every step towards self-awareness is a victory. Thank you for joining me in this space of reflection and growth.